Good morning, everybody. And hopefully this is what you're all in the room for. You want to hear about how we've helped one of our key clients, Elsevier, embed Tableau into Salesforce. And obviously it's a pretty interesting subject given the nature of the relationship now with Tableau and Salesforce. So hopefully you're going to get a lot out of this session. The session's designed for an everyone session, so it's not deep tech, but we'll be happy to take questions offline after that. But hopefully we'll give you a good grounding of the project that we've done and some of the lessons learned and some of the cool stuff we've managed to achieve with these technologies. So, first of all, a little bit of hello and who are we? So my name's Richard Fayers. I'm a director at Slalom. I run our data and analytics practice in the UK. So it's nice to have a UK voice for once for a change. And I'm joined on the stage by David. And David's one of our consultants out of New York. And David's actually going to show some really cool stuff towards the second half of the presentation about what we've been working on actually to make this better and actually a more seamless experience. Before we start, I don't know, have we got any Walking Dead fans out there? Put your hands up, any Walking Dead fans? There's a smattering. Okay, were any of you freaked out when you found out that we were in Oceanside today? Is that, no? Okay, fine. For those of you who don't know that, that's a community full of zombies, so it was a little bit of a worry when I found out where we were presenting today. Anyway, moving on. What are we going to cover today? Okay, so a little bit of a context, just very briefly, who we are, Slalom. I'm sure many of you have heard of us, but if you haven't, a very brief overview of what we do. And critically, who our client was, Elsevier. Elsevier, unfortunately, they couldn't be here today. We were planning to. Unfortunately, we couldn't. So don't worry, I've got the client actually speaking as part of a little bit of a video. What we're then going to take you through is how we came up with the requirements for this project. A little bit of a different approach, a little bit more engaging with the users. We'll then go through some of the decisions that we had to make in terms of how we're actually going to deliver this. Thinking about Salesforce Connector that Tableau has, why do we, could we use that? Thinking about some of the data architecture, some of those considerations. And then thinking about how we actually got that all to work within Salesforce itself to create that experience. And then we're going to round off, this is where David will really hopefully show you some cool stuff about this project we started about 2 years ago. If we were starting this afresh today, and some of the developments that have been made in the technology, how would we do it a little bit differently? Because we won't want to set you off on the same journey that we went, when actually there's some really interesting ways you can do it better now. So hopefully that will all make sense to you. Quick question again, right? I just thought we'd do a bit of an icebreaker instead of going straight into project stuff. Put your hand up if you've ever heard of Top Trumps, the game. This is not a political thing, it's a card game. And keep your hands up if you are American. Oh, God, right, okay. So a bit of context, right? A bit of a game. It's a kid's game that's really popular in the UK. And I thought, when I was coming out to Nevada, I was thinking, crikey, that's a long way away. And you often compare where you've come from, don't you? And when you're going somewhere, you think about how does it compare to where I live or where I work. And so I thought I'd do a bit of a Top Trumps. And Top Trumps is a game where you deal out cards, and there are like 5 questions or 6 questions on the same subject. When I was growing up, we had a dinosaur set, so you'd have what's the biggest or the heaviest or the fear factor, or you'd have gunfighters, most kills and things like that. So I thought we'd play a little game of Top Trumps, UK versus Nevada, just to get you warmed up, see how we're stacking up compared. I thought against the US, that was a little bit unfair. It's a bit outgunned on that one. So the way it works, biggest number wins, okay? So I want you to kind of think about, shout out who you think is going to win. So the first one, which do you think's bigger, Nevada or the UK? Well, that's pretty overwhelming. Okay, so 110,000 square miles, and you're right. So you can fit the whole of the UK just in one of your states. In fact, you can fit the whole of the UK in 11 of your states. It's that vast. And that's 3 countries, right? England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. They all fit into one of your states. So a little. What about population? You've only got 2 million in Nevada. We're a little bit more intimate in the UK. We've got 67 million, so you can see that's quite a cozy way of living. Now, tallest building. Who do you think's got the tallest building? Well, we've got a split there. Okay, so if I tell you that the tallest building in Nevada is, actually that's quite pathetic when you look at, we win that. So that's the Shard in London. The one in Nevada is actually here. It's the Palacio, although you have got one that's not built yet, which will become taller than that. So look out for that. Highest point. I'm just going to concede defeat on this one. Boundary view. It absolutely wipes the floor with us. So the last one, the clincher. We're at 2-2 here. How do you think it's going to go? Vehicles per capita, you are centre of automobiles for the world, right? Just over, well, 1.51 per capita. Wouldn't you know it? So we win 3-2. That's good. Okay, just a bit of fun. Warm you up a little bit. Straight in, who are Slalom? A bit of a step change. Really, really briefly, we are, as it says here, a modern consulting firm. We do strategy, technology, and a lot of business transformation. And a big part of that is around analytics. But more importantly, in terms of why we're here, is we are a main partner for Tableau. We've been Partner of the Year 4 times, our last 5, I think, here in the US. But actually, what many of you may not, if you're coming from the Tableau community, is that we're also the 3rd in terms of kind of influence revenue around Salesforce globally. So this is a really key part of our business. And it's interesting because contextually, Salesforce is the fastest growing part of our business, both in the UK and in the US. So we're really in a privileged position where we can join our teams together. And with the announcement that Tableau was becoming part of the Salesforce family, actually that obviously made us quite interested and excited because it puts us in a bit of a unique situation. Enough of us. Who are Elsevier? So Elsevier, a long-standing organisation going back to the 1800s. Traditionally, they've been known as a publishing company, and they are famous for publishing medical journals and articles. And you can see there the Lancet, which is probably one of the oldest medical journals, which publishes key medical research to this day, is published by the Elsevier group. And then they have a number of products now, and they've transformed themselves, as you'll hear in a second from themselves. Down the right-hand side, a number of products that they offer. So Scopus is an online database for citations, where you can go in as a medical or a scientific community, find citations and research. It's the biggest in the world. Science Direct, similarly, that is a database full of journals and articles that you can find if you're doing research, or you can collaborate and work on these platforms together. So that's a little bit about Elsevier. You can see some stats on the left there. I won't go into them, pretty big, but really key in the whole kind of data around research and education. But what I thought I'd do is I'd actually show you a quick video, because Tom, who is our main contact at Elsevier, couldn't be here, but we made a video. I do apologise for the blatant product placement that you'll see here. I don't apologise, it was quite designed for that. But a little bit of an overview of the product and the project, and then we'll go into about how we actually approached it.
Elsevier is a data analytics company that helps science, health and technology professionals make better decisions. We're traditionally from a publishing background and helping bring our data together using advanced data analytics techniques to make better informed decisions, with a clear target to go from the traditional method of read this and go through this to actually giving insights to do this. My role specifically is to work with different initiatives to help understand how we can use data to support their wider business. We are changing the way of working and way of thinking across our sales organisation to be more data-driven. The objectives of the Salesforce modernisation project were to streamline our sales processes and ways of working and putting data at the heart of the decision-making process. We were looking for a partner to work with us to help build up our maturity and deliver the project. We had a few recommendations from Tableau as different partners to work with, and as we worked with those, it became very clear that Slalom would be a strong partner. As we started the project, what became apparent was Slalom really wanted to make us successful and would do whatever they could to help us through challenges to get to that point.
So when we first started working with Elsevier, the brief was really around a Tableau project to visualize their Salesforce data. But after a quick discovery phase, it became apparent that actually there was a big challenge, because the data that the sales teams needed to actually perform their work and their analysis was actually coming from different sources.
So Slalom came in, and from an outsider, we were able to take a fresh look at how we worked and help make the right recommendations on how we should take the data that we've got and the processes we've got to improve that decision-making process through analytics and data visualization.
So it morphed from just a visualization project effectively into a data integration project, which we then surfaced using Tableau and actually embedded it within Salesforce so that the sales teams had just a seamless experience.
One of the big things that the Salesforce project has helped within Elsevier is putting data at the heart of everybody's day-to-day working. As soon as a sales professional comes in, they can see exactly where they are in the sales process against their quotas and pipelines for the day.
Critically now, the sales team at Elsevier have a single source of truth around their sales data.
In our previous ways of working, this was very manual and lagging behind by days or weeks. And now it's updated on a daily basis to help make more informed decisions.
Then once we delivered the solution, the key really was then enabling the Elsevier sales teams to use the tool. And so we adopted a train the trainer approach where we trained about 30 of their people, and they actually have now trained at 400 of their sales reps in the use of this tool. It's also allowed the management team really to look from a strategic perspective in terms of putting forward their new sales plans and really helping guide their individual sales teams to better performance.
As we've delivered this project, it really helped other parts of the organisation start accelerating their journey of thinking around data too.
Okay, you spotted the mug. That was right in the centre there. So what was the project all about? Well, as Tom said, really, it was about empowering their sales team. They were going through a Salesforce implementation program, and they realised that actually they really wanted to empower the sales people with not just a view of what was going on, but actually the key thing is this kind of actionable insight side of things. How could they find out the data they needed to find out and make action and direction on that data? And around that, there were some really interesting points about need to achieve. So not just this is what I've sold or this is what my pipeline is, but actually, what is my target? What do I still need to do? Where should I be focusing my efforts in terms of my meetings to actually achieve our plans? And also key was around the self-serve. So up to now, they had a mixture of things, a lot of Excel. There was quite a big business objects estate, which really wasn't allowing their more power users to get in there and surface the insights that they wanted to. So how do we go about finding out what they wanted to do and what they actually wanted to deliver? It's a busy slide, but it's actually a slide that we produced as part of the project and outcome. And we worked on a persona-driven requirements basis. So we spent a lot of time sitting down with the sales reps, with the sales managers, they had 3 different functions across kind of 3 core geographies, in fact 4 core geographies. So we were working with people in Singapore, in Amsterdam, London, and also over in Philadelphia as well. And each of those teams were selling different products and had different nuances. And to date, they'd never implemented a solution across those different units. So from the off, it was going to be a challenge. And the key thing about this priority that you can see, the number one thing here, was ensuring that they can see their performance year to date and that gap. Okay, where do I need to focus my efforts? And also automating a lot of things that were currently done in a combination of NIME and just Excel and cut and paste and things like that. And that all too common term 360 view of customer. They wanted to understand who was likely to churn. They also want to understand what activities could lead to better sales. So you can see a whole bunch of priorities. And that's what we kind of phrased it. What are your priorities? Because the wish list would have been just unachievable. They define success in some kind of very succinct, clear outcomes. A lot of things that you'd expect around trusted, accurate, getting rid of Excel, and that integrated view across sources. And then there's some concerns around there. But actually what you can see around the concerns, apart from quality of data, most of them were around actually their ways of working, the ability for their organization to flex and work in this way. We also identified some things that they weren't doing that they need to start doing. Fail fast is a mantra that I was really trying to drum into them. Let's work out what we can do. If we can't do it, let's move on quickly. There's some things that we needed to continue. They had a sales advisory board that were integrated into the process from the start, which was key. And there's also a lot of things they needed to stop doing. A lot of procrastinating, a lot of thinking about inspiring for perfection. And actually, no, let's get grounded in those priorities and really, move forward quickly. This is some output from actually a workshop that I ran in Amsterdam with them. And it's only when you sit down and you kind of wireframe this, and this is literally, just working with the team, asking what their priorities were, how do they want to see that data, how would they want to interact with that data, that we actually started to realize there was 2 clear, distinct use cases. So Elsevier sell these products, subscriptions to databases effectively. And their clients can be anything from individual research institutions, universities, corporations, to countries. So countries actually buy subscriptions on behalf of their academic community. And then they have renewals and they have new business. And what we realized was the renewals had a very different set of metrics and way of working than the new business. So we needed to reflect that in the different kind of dashboards. So you can see this view on the top left on both of those. This was the key thing that actually meant that we moved from a visualization project to this data integration project. Because the challenge was they wanted their opportunities, that's their pipeline, so that's in Salesforce, great. They wanted how many meetings they were having, how many calls they were having, great, that's in Salesforce. But they also wanted to then compare that with what they'd sold to date. Oh, no, that's not in Salesforce. They wanted their quotas, no, that's all over the place. And they wanted forecasts as well. So suddenly you're thinking, actually, no, we're not just going to stick Tableau on top of Salesforce, we've actually got a much more interesting challenge, actually. So why Tableau? Well, that actually was a decision that had already been made when we got engaged. As Tom said in the video, Tableau gave a number of partners names to Elsevier, and we engaged, and we were lucky enough to come through. So they'd made that decision. And some of the key reasons why we needed something a little bit more powerful like Tableau than just the native Salesforce reporting I've put on here. And it's actually quite restrictive. We're not talking about Einstein, we're not talking about Einstein Analytics here. It's a couple of years ago as well, so that product hadn't moved on. This is basic stuff you get within the product. And you can see some real limitations. 3 filters per dashboard. I can't think of any dashboard I've built with less than probably 4 or 5, right? So straight away you've got product, you've got sales and personal team, you've got region, you've got time. Well, there's 4 straight away, right? So immediately you've got some restrictions there, and also how you populate what's in those filters is quite restrictive. There's also the key thing about the interactivity. So one of the things we all love to do is as we make a selection on one chart, we'll see the results filtering across charts. And again, that's just not possible within those native tools. And there's also some limited user functionality. That last one, the chart types, actually sounds like a basic thing, but they had this really interesting requirement where they wanted to track how an opportunity moved through the pipeline. So this is actually a tooltip that pops up, and you'll see a demo in a bit. And this is for each opportunity. You can see here they had these stages of an opportunity going from lead, prospecting, right the way through to close. And you can see with this it's really interesting because you can pop in and out of actual pipeline stage. And you can see, well, hold on a sec, we thought we were about to move into evaluation or close that, and it then pops back into actually doing the needs analysis. Now, you couldn't do that in there, and that's something like a waterfall chart would be really key in enabling that. So it sounds like a trivial requirement, but actually it really, really provided the insight that they were, really striving for. So, okay, so we've decided that we're going to use Tableau. That's how we're going to actually visualize and interact with this data. So can we just use the Salesforce Connector, right? Tableau got a nice connector, comes with a preset built of dashboards. So can we do that? Well, no. And the main reason here is because of the limitations that you've got on the Salesforce architecture. So really, there is very limited ability using that connector to prep and flex and model the data in a way that you actually need. It's as it comes out of the box. And very quickly, you're going to run into roadblocks if you have to use that. It's great for that basic reporting, but there's going to be some challenges there. Number 3 is the big killer. You can't integrate with other data sources very easily, okay? So as I just said, we've got our sales data and our forecast and our planning data. We just can't get that from Salesforce. So straight away, actually, this is a no-go. The other thing, actually, and it's interesting looking at the devs on stage this morning around the new kind of join options and things like that, it's going to be worth exploring that. But there's actually kind of really limited in what you can do around those sorts of things. And from a user perspective, there are at least 5 requirements that actually couldn't be met. So the first one, really about self-serve. To do a self-serve data model, you really need kind of a star schema, because otherwise you're going to have multiple versions of the same measures and the same dimensions. It's going to get very confusing from a self-serve perspective. So if you want to move into that space, we really need to give them a model that is kind of idiot-proof and actually really succinct and everything in one place. The second point, the only reason I put this chart to you was to say that, see, it's not always rainy in England. We actually have some really nice summer days as well. This is about forecasting, right? So you can only have 3 months worth of kind of spot data within Salesforce that you can access. So if you wanted to access a forecast you'd done more than 3 months ago, you wouldn't be able to render it, which obviously is a bit of a challenge. The third thing, I looked for hours trying to find an image that represented pivot. Any on a Latin or ballroom dancer out there? No one's missing it. Okay, my son is. He's awesome. So he gave me the inspiration. This is a particular turn that you do in Latin ballroom. But pivoting your data is a key thing here. So if you think about it, you might want to see your data as a list of measures, or you might want to see a measure dimension with a list of versions. So all kind of data architecture considerations. Very difficult to do that within this. Missing data, another really key point. If you haven't got a kind of dimensional model there, you won't be able to see the products you haven't sold. And that's almost more important than the products you have sold. So again, you need to think about that. And then, I mentioned before, but I just thought a nice waterfall. You can't do some certain chart types and that sort of stuff. So, okay, we need to move on. So we needed a data mart. So this is what we ended up building. I've simplified this massively, but you get the idea. So Salesforce, that's giving us our opportunities, our indicators, our activity, our pipeline. They had history that they necessarily weren't migrating, so we had to bring that in from Siebel. And then we had the quotas and the actual sales coming out of Oracle Sales. They also had another sales data warehouse, a SQL Server database, and they also had Excel all over the place. So using a combination of Talend, and then using it on AWS, we put that data into S3, and then moved that data into AWS Redshift, which then Tableau then sat on. So we've got our tool decision, we've got our data model and data architecture working. The next thing is how do we then get that actually in Salesforce? Because the whole point really was they didn't want their sales teams to open up Salesforce and work within that tool as their key thing, and then actually have to go and open up Tableau separately to really start doing their investigation. They wanted that single experience. And actually what they wanted was an experience where the sales guys didn't even know that they were accessing a different tool. It just happened to be another part of their solution. So I built this model for Elsevier to try and explore the different use cases, what we were trying to achieve, and how you could go about actually delivering that. And we considered it from kind of two front-end perspectives, either just the native Salesforce reporting or Tableau. We considered it from where the data was coming from, how the data was going to get integrated, and then how the data was going to get consumed. So for the really, really basic stuff, where it's literally operational reporting, fine, you can do that in Salesforce. Don't try and, you're not going to add anything by doing that in Tableau. Leave them to do that when they're looking at their individual, putting new opportunities in and seeing how they're doing. But the minute you start getting into more management dashboards, the tier one, then actually our integration is then, you could actually start doing some limited integration into Tableau if you didn't want to go through that full data mart piece. And then you consume that by embedding Tableau within Salesforce. So some really nice filtering and data exploration could be achieved with that, doing some trends and some exceptions. Then the key area, which was actually probably about 80% of the project, was then more around the exec reporting plus ad hoc. And that's where we're integrating multiple sources using that previous integration layer I talked about. We're then actually using the combination of Tableau and this data mart to bring this together. And then we're embedding that within Salesforce. But also, you could just have the Tableau dashboard separately accessed via Tableau server as well. So you give them that flexibility there. And then we also went one stage further and looked at the more kind of Uber self-serve and the much more kind of analytical one. And we said, actually, using this model, it's great, because for those specific cases, you can still just use Tableau on its own this time, not embedded, leveraging the power of the data mart and the integration that you've already done. So this was a really nice kind of menu for them to work out how they go and build that. I won't go into too much detail here, but then you've got options of how you then put that Tableau dashboard inside of Salesforce. And at the time that we were doing this, we kind of had three options. We had a web tab, an iframe, or the canvas adapter. And there were limitations mainly for the web tab and the iframe. For example, the web tab is literally just a window onto Tableau. So you wouldn't be able to get rid of all the kind of menus. It wouldn't be very customizable, and actually it was limited in Lightning. iframe, similarly, but it was very limited in terms of the interactivity you could get. And what we really wanted to have was when we were looking at a Salesforce opportunity, the context of that opportunity to filter through into the dashboard. So what we ended up doing was going with the canvas adapter. But that introduced an extra element that we needed. The key thing we needed is a secure connection. So that involves an element called Sparkler, which This is where things have really moved on since we did this. But that's what we went for. We can talk about a lot more detail of that if need be. But I just thought I'd really kind of show you how that works quite diagrammatically. So we've got our user, our salesperson. Critically, they can be out on the road. So they might not be inside of the corporate network. And that's a key consideration when you're doing secure connectivity. So they want to access data out of Salesforce. They want to go via their browser. They want to get the visualizations from Tableau, and they want to get the data from Redshift, okay? That's quite an interesting problem to solve, because we make a request into our browser, and it goes, okay, goes to Salesforce, and Salesforce comes back and says, there you go, there's an iframe, a page within your Salesforce instance, a nice place for you to hold your visualization. But the problem is, Salesforce is on a cloud, and we've got Tableau over either on its own cloud or on its on-prem server. Salesforce has got no concept of where Tableau is. That's where Sparkler comes in. So Sparkler effectively allows you to create that trusted connection. It goes away, so I know where Tableau is, requests a trusted ticket, it comes back and embeds that within your browser with that ticket. And you can then actually make the viz request back to Redshift and then all the way back up. So there's quite a lot going on there. And Dave will show you actually how we kind of managed to kind of reduce some of that stuff moving forward. But that was kind of what was going on underneath, but it's sort of quite useful just to show you how that works. Okay, demo time. This is a video, so David might pause it for me now and again. I just want to kind of show it. So, do you want to start it, David? So, effectively, with we couldn't show it embedded in Salesforce. It was non-anonymized. But you can see here we've got a team performance chart here. This is that key chart I said at the top. There are our filters down the left, and then we can see a particular sales team and sales individuals. We can see how we're overall performing. This was this critical thing about actual pipeline forecast in one chart. That one chart on the left, that's talking about 4 or 5 different sources. We can see the trend over time for the one-off and the recurring, and then you can get a real highlighted snapshot of which products are above or below plan. So you can see here, this one product, Embase, is above plan. Just pause it there, David. I first met Francois Agenstadt in 1999, so if anyone wants to buy me a beer, I'm sure we've got some stories there. But when we sat together, he was working at Cognos at the time, and we were talking about problems in BI tools at the time. And one of the problems was something that we talked about called blinding averages. And this is a really good example of a blinding average, which is really simply surfaced through the interactivity within Tableau. And so when we clicked on Embase, Embase looks like it's all good, right? But actually, by filtering on that, we can see now, actually, person 29, we've obviously anonymized these, person 17, they're actually below quota. 667 and 606 are absolutely bossing it. But it's quite difficult for a manager to see where they need to focus that attention. So just being able to highlight those differences is really, really key. So you can see there, you can see average order, you can see average deal size and cycle and that sort of stuff. Okay, so that's the team performance. And then we looked at things like the team activity. So how many calls, how many visits have you been having? You can see here's face-to-face and virtual. And you've got a trending across time. And then also by individual, how active have they been in their client base? Critically, on the right-hand side bottom, you can see accounts with no activity. Get on the phone. What are you doing? And then top right, again, if you could pause there. Thanks, David. Classic tree view, size is the actual value of the opportunity. The color this time, the darkness, relates to the amount of activity you've had in that account. So good news, top account, biggest, a lot of activity. Okay, that's good. But if you actually scroll across, we've got this client here. It's quite big because you've only seen them in January and September. What's going on? We should get out there and actually make a call and make a visit. This is my favorite view. My pipeline, it could be mine or my own team's. You can see the amount of pipeline that's open, and critically, you can go right across to the right and see what's your pipeline at risk. That's an insight in action, okay? Because from that view, I can then go and say, where do you need to get on the road? Which accounts do you need to go? That's what's at risk. And then we've got, is that moving on? Yeah, that's it. Then we've got it by time, and then we've got it broken down by pipeline stage here, okay? So prospecting, analysis. This is my favorite view. I use bubble charts all the time, I love them. And I love them using them with a time dimension to them. So the dotted line is today, and this is for looking at due dates of opportunity. So the height of each of those bubbles. And each of those bubbles is an opportunity. The height is how long that opportunity has been in the pipeline for, the duration. The size is the value. Everything to the left, that's past its due date, right? That's late. Everything to the right is forthcoming. Okay, go for it. So you can really now start to think about, okay, well, where do I focus my time on those big opportunities and also the proximity to close? And you get that, there's that waterfall chart. You can see how the opportunities are moving through the pipeline. So that's a really interesting way you can focus in on, which accounts are not moving, which are stuck. Are we stuck? Let's press play. There you go. And actually what you find is some of these accounts have got lots of activity and actually they're miles away or they haven't got any value. We focus in on just one stage of the pipeline, those in negotiation. Okay, this is everything that's in negotiation stage. We need to be closing these. That's good news. That's only 8 days in. That one that was past due date, that's been in the pipeline for 104 days. We've got an issue on that one. Maybe we need to actually close that as lost. You get the idea. So you can see there that that's just Tableau. And then you wrap Salesforce around that by looking at your own individual products and your own individual teams, and suddenly you get this really immersive, interactive, and key thing is ability to make decisions based on that data. Okay, move that forward. There we go. So, if we were doing this today, we'd do a few things slightly differently. It's really interesting seeing some of the new features this morning around level of detail calculations. We actually had to create an extract because we had so many LOD calculations in the model due to the complexity of their sales organization. It wasn't just a simple matter of opportunities bubbling up a hierarchy in terms of actually attributing value to individuals. So we've got a mass around that. Today, with some of the advancements in the multiple table storage, we could actually go for direct query straight off the database. And talking about that, what we also do, and it's in fact, Elsevier actually recently done this, is implement a more elastic data architecture. So if you can think about salespeople, there's going to be real peaks of demand. So something like Redshift Spectrum or Snowflake is brilliant for actually allowing you to ramp that processing power up as needed and take it down again if you don't need it. And the final part is an interesting one. We put one Tableau server estate in to service all of their requirements. So the success of this project meant we did projects on finance, in HR, in other parts of Elsevier. What we did was we put one in there to meet this Salesforce challenge. In hindsight, we'd have probably had a dedicated one for that, and that would have actually simplified some of those security requirements and some of that architecture that we had. So we'd probably have a single use case for that and then a separate one for everything else. But what I'm really excited about and what I would really do now is actually that whole ability to embed and actually thinking about even getting more interactive with that data. In Slalom, we've taken advantage of some of the API extensions. At this point, I'm going to hand over to David, because David's actually been working on this stuff, and he's going to show you how you can now use some of those extensions and APIs to really kind of change the narrative and the actual capabilities of what we can do within Salesforce using Tableau.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm really excited to show you what our team has been working on. So just a bit of background on me. I started making dashboards about 7 years ago, and the reason I did was because I believed really strongly that when you have a good data set, if you're able to present it in a beautiful and compelling way, people end up doing the right thing. They look at it and they take that data, they get insights, and they end up having data-driven actions. And that's a phrase you hear a lot in a conference like this one, being a data-driven organization and make sure that all your actions are being data-driven. And Tableau is fantastic for that. Tableau allows you to get into your data, explore it, and find insights. But there can be a little bit of friction on the action part. So let me show you what I mean. Here we have a Tableau dashboard. It's a pretty simple dashboard, and it's connected to Salesforce, but we're also bringing in some data from Snowflake. In this case, we're showing account names. Again, we have some filters up here. And we're showing opportunities for each of these accounts in different stages of development, right? Here we have stage 5, the last one, negotiation. So things that are almost ready to go. And really quickly, you find an insight here. Okay, this account, which has a pretty big opportunities in the negotiation stage, so we should probably push it forward and make sure that it happens. But now that's the point at which you need to make an action happen, right? And usually, if you're a sales organization, the place where you make that action is going to be Salesforce. So you're going to come to your Salesforce homepage. You're going to have to look up for that account. You're going to create a task. And at that point, you've already left the mindset of the data exploration, of getting insights. You're fully in this Salesforce world. So we really believe in blurring the lines between Tableau and Salesforce. And to do that, one of the first things that we need to do is have a reliable and repeatable way to embed Tableau within Salesforce. So the way we do that is our Seattle team has created a really great Lightning component here, which allows you to, within the edit page, with just 3 clicks, embed any of your Tableau dashboards within Salesforce. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here now. So that's the 1 click, and I'm going to go ahead and paste my pre-copied link here, so we're not counting that. And my 3rd click is going to be to adjust the height here. So as easy as that, we have a beautiful visualization embedded within Salesforce. I'm going to do a few things like clean up that toolbar at the bottom. I also can clean up the display tabs at the top. And there we are. It's super easy. So I'm going to save this and go back. And one of the other really powerful features of being able to embed Tableau within Salesforce is that we can get some filtering to work from Tableau to Salesforce and vice versa. So let me show you what I mean by that. So we were looking at this client with a really big opportunity on stage 5. So we're going to click on them, and we're going to be able to navigate to the Salesforce account page from this embedded Tableau dashboard. And as you can see, so here we are, again, Salesforce, but I have embedded a different dashboard in this accounts page in which you can see the filters are already set for this account. So in this case, it's Salesforce filtering back into Tableau. So you have that cross-filtering, which is really powerful. It means that I can use and reuse the same dashboard in every single account and get different insights for each account. But that's just the first step to being able to blur those lines between Salesforce and Tableau. And the next step, we believe, is being able to write back records from Tableau into Salesforce. So I'm going to go ahead and add a couple more dashboards here because it's so easy to add dashboards. So let me copy a couple links here. And I'm going to add another one here. I think I may have entered the wrong one. So Tableau embed, we're going to add it here. Fantastic. Add my link. Again, I'm going to clean up those toolbars and tabs, and going to set up that height. And Salesforce is responsive on width, so we don't need to worry about that. So great. Now we have 2 slightly different dashboards from what we saw before, and these are actually a lot more powerful. In this case, what we have is, I'll let them load for a second, but we've created a Tableau write-back extension. Let's see. There we go. Excellent. Just loading up. And so one of the things that we were looking at before was, okay, so we have this client, and he has the stage 5 opportunity, but it's not only him. There's a lot of clients or accounts that we should probably act on immediately. And I don't want to go to the accounts page because even that is already reducing that mindset of exploring the data and coming up with insights and acting on those insights as soon as you have that insights. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab all these stage 5 opportunities, and I'm going to say we should set up a meeting. And you can describe this in any way you want. I'm going to actually assign Jeff, who has helped develop a lot of the extensions that you're seeing here. We're going to say this is going to be a meeting, and we're going to give it high priority. And we want all these meetings to be set up to be done by Monday. So what I'm going to do is going to submit this, and this extension is going to write back immediately into Salesforce. And I can just select to reset my marks, and I can continue looking at this dashboard, getting more insights, and immediately acting on them and creating mass records within Salesforce. One of the things to note is that this extension is really configurable. So we have another example here of something else that you could do with it. For example, we're looking at opportunities again, the open ones and the won ones. And let's say we really appreciate our customers, because we do, and we're going to invite all of them to a customer appreciation event. So I can select all of them, and I'm going to select the customer love event, and it's already planned, so I'm going to submit it. And again, great, super easy. I can reset my marks, and again, continue looking at my Tableau dashboards, looking at my data, including third-party data, and making actions and decisions immediately. I'm going to go ahead and just open the task tabs here, and you're going to be able to see all those records have been created. But the value here is that you don't even need to go there. You can always stay in that state of discovery, of insight, and of action. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a little bit of the back end here. Great. So this is a simplified version of the architecture, and we'd be happy to talk further about this if you have any questions. But simplified, we have Salesforce, which everyone has used, and then we are taking the Salesforce data source and including any third-party data sources, like in this case we did a Snowflake data source. We have those cross-data filters that you can filter Salesforce with Tableau and vice versa. And again, the really powerful way to write back data into Salesforce using that extension API. So yeah, again, we believe that you can accelerate your database in Salesforce. We believe that pulling data sources from outside your Salesforce can really help you find trends and highlights. You're able to see across many different, so whether it be sales, service, or marketing across your organization, and they're data-driven actions. Salesforce admins can embed these very quickly, and we are leveraging Lightning components that can be used across all of Salesforce. And finally, we can write back directly to Tableau, directly to Salesforce from Tableau without having to leave it at all. With that, I'll hand it off back to Richard.
Thanks, David. So I've been working in this industry for about 25 years, and that loop, insight to action, I've rarely seen it done well, and I'm really excited by this integration. I think this is really quite a shift in our capabilities to really use the data and drive business forward in all sorts of different use cases. So, kind of wrapping up, what did we achieve and what did we do back on the Elsevier project? And by the way, all of that kind of lovely diagram I had with Spark and everything like that, that's what they've done with those APIs, those Lightning components. They've kind of wrapped all of that complexity up and bundled that into a repeatable tool effectively. So that really, really simplifies the whole architecture and way you're going to go about delivering this sort of stuff. So key outcomes on the Elsevier program. One way, 3 divisions. They'd never done that before, probably politically more than anything else, but actually their sales forces were targeted differently, they had different product sets. We kind of compromised and we made the best of breed across those 3 divisions, so that was a real game changer. As you can see, we've built quite a comprehensive sales data mart, which is an amazing asset for them. And we just delivered 8 dashboards, but as I said, once we delivered this, we went across the board. We got this chart that we show all the Tableau sales guys to say, look, this is what you can do from one project. This is how you can actually grow and really expand within an account or within a team. We've embedded the dashboards in Salesforce, which is really cool. We've embedded Tableau Server. And what's really cool, as I said in the video, they've got about over 1,000 users now actually using this. But we only trained about 30 to 50 of them. We did some dedicated sessions in London, Oxford, Amsterdam, and some online stuff for the US and for Singapore as well. And now those 1,000 people are just running with this and using it. So that's really rewarding and something that we're really proud of. If you want to go and have a look at this, just go into go into Slalom.com. It's one of the case studies there, so you can actually read about that in here. So have a look at that and have a browse. A nice quote from Tom. I think it is really key. As I said, I've done a lot of work in this space for many, many years, and this embedding insights into a person's day-to-day way of working. I remember Microsoft talking about the information worker probably about 20 years ago. Well, this is really moving to that space where you're empowering people with no data literacy. They're salesmen, right? They're out there selling this product. You're giving them the ability to do analysis and make action on that. So I love that quote from Tom. It's really good. Finally, if you want to come and hear more about this, David's already done his tour of duty on the booth. I think he's going to have a rest now. But you can come and find us. All the guys can talk to you about this and other work that we've done. And we can actually show you this demo of the Salesforce Click Embed. So if you want to go and explore that in more detail and see how we've done that, please come and join us. We're kind of near the swings and the roundabouts. Not roundabouts, swings and seesaws. The other thing, I just need to give a shout out to Justin Hinkford, one of our Slalom guys. He's doing a session tomorrow, should be pretty cool, in Breakers Level 2, enabling healthcare with a cosmic experience, user experience. So please sign up for that if you haven't already done so. With that, I only have one request. You give me a magnificent review on the app. No, please fill that in. It's always useful to get that feedback. And happy to take some emails as well. And we've got probably about 10 minutes. So if anyone does have a question, then feel free. I don't know if we've got a separate mic, have we? We got a set? Yeah, we have. No. You got a question? Yeah.
In your design and requirement spaces, did you ever find a need for the sales team to get a forecast and for you to keep track of what they entered?
Yeah. So the question was there a need for the Salesforce team to enter the forecast themselves? Yes, absolutely. It was done quite centrally, as I said, in spreadsheets and that sort of stuff. They were actually building a Salesforce component to do that within Elsevier. So there are parts of Salesforce you can do, which they were then going to actually embed that in there, and then we would just take that as a separate data source and integrate that later. But yeah, that's a really good point. Any other questions? Yeah, down the front here. Yes, SSO is a challenge. It's still a challenge even with the latest components. What we've managed to do is we have got it to work, but there is a splash screen where you have to do a single click to go OK. And so it kind of does a handshake. A completely seamless is still a challenge. But what I would do is, if you want to explore that, we've got the guys who have built this on the booth at some points, and we can actually tell you how they've managed to get around that. But that, I would say, that is a challenge ongoing, yeah.
They have mentioned to, oh, go ahead.
That's still a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge, but they've mentioned that there are many ways to today address it in a more robust way.
Yeah, but then Tableau doesn't support that customizations. Like, you could customize a product more, achieve that seamless integration. Tableau would not support it in case of any issues or any downtime.
Yeah, there are some limitations, yeah. But we have done a lot of custom coding around to make it as seamless as possible.
Yeah, in those cases, we are usually the ones that support it.
Okay.
Yeah, we implement it and support it.
Another thing is we are also using web tabs. So what happens in web tabs is we have to disable one vulnerability to support the web tabs.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
Nor am I, but maybe we can have some follow-up discussion on that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, gentlemen.
Is the Tableau embedded tool Lightning only?
Is the Tableau tool in Lightning only?
It is a Lightning component, but again, there are many ways to implement that. It could be an iframe. In the case that you're seeing our demo, yes, it was a Lightning component.
Yeah. Yeah, lady here.
So you said you have the real-time integration of the data, like you're embedding the Tableau.
Yes.
And it is real-time data.
Real-time data embedded in Tableau.
But
Okay.
then in one of your slides you mentioned that because of the LOD calculations you had to use extract.
Yes.
And that was right.
So these are two separate things. Okay. So what David demonstrated, the write back effectively was live writing data to Salesforce. That's live. So you did that, writes the task straight to Salesforce. You're right. We took an extract basis on our Salesforce data into Tableau and Elsevier. But we've changed that now, so that is now actually a live connection to Snowflake. So then all you're limited by is the refresh rate from your data source into Snowflake through that architecture.
Okay, so you were still being able to use so instead of using the LODs, you're using the new feature.
We still use LODs because there are still some nuances there. But what I would say is the plan, in fact, Matthew's working at the client now advising them how we can take some of this forward given the new features. And we think we can actually reduce some of that complexity because of the new data architecture opportunities.
So how about the data complexity over there? I mean, meaning, do they have a lot of data? How is the performance when it comes to
Right.
life?
So question around performance. Yeah, with the extract, that's one reason they've moved to Snowflake. Because of that vast amount of data and the level of detail calculations, the performance was patchy in certain situations. So they've made that decision, they've moved that now directly into Snowflake, and then we can just ramp it up as need be. So it's really cool.
So that helped?
That helped massively, yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yes?
Thanks a lot for the wonderful session. So the API extension that you guys used, was it a custom API?
It's
So we're using the Salesforce API and the Tableau API. So both of those are really well documented by both companies. And we did develop the actual extension ourselves. So we used Node, and then we used React for the UI, and Heroku for the communication side.
My second question is, did you find any challenges while implementing the write back to Salesforce, especially when it's lightning because of the iframe issues?
No. So
issues with write-back, using
Right.
iframe.
on the write back, we are using the extension and the Salesforce API that's writing back to it. So in that case, it's not the iframe communicating with it. It is a separate web application that's using those two APIs.
Thank you.
And
You're
it works
welcome.
great, yeah.
Any final ones?
have a similar issue with the iframes. So we are doing the other way around. We're embedding the Salesforce to the Tableau dashboard,
Interesting.
and I'm finding this iframe issue.
Okay.
How can we do that?
Why don't we have a session down in the booth and we can get our developers and you can talk them through it if you'd like to. I'm not going to be able to answer that.
Yeah, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
So I know you said that a lot of these components of this project were dealt with prior to Einstein Analytics. and
Yeah.
Salesforce. Where do you see the future going with your extension and the combination of Einstein into the mix?
Yeah, I was hoping the keynote yesterday might start addressing some of that stuff, right? I think that it's only going to get tighter, would be my starting perspective in terms of this. I had a good chat with Francois actually the other night about how he sees that direction, but it is really, really early days. You know, they've only just been released from their not being able to talk to each other. So in terms of that roadmap, I don't think that is cleared. What I would say is I can only see there being tighter integration with Salesforce, and I think they're going to make that easier. So we've probably got a little bit of a steal on this, but it's probably temporary, right? Because I think that will become core function. Why wouldn't you, right? I also think that Einstein has come a long way since we looked at it back then. It was kind of the Wave product, which was not good. It's actually not bad now, but I think if I was going to put some money on it, being in Vegas, I'd be putting the Einstein piece on the ML piece, and I'd be putting the Tableau on the how do we render, how do we visualize everything. And I think that's probably where that separation is going to go. But I'm just hypothesizing because none of that's public at the moment. Yeah. Any other questions? Or am I keeping you from lunch? Okay. As I said, please come down to the booth in the Data Village. But thank you for your attention. I hope you found it useful. And have a good day. Thanks, guys.